The last day dawns on the kingdom of Ascalon. It arrives with no fanfare, no tolling of alarms. Those who will remember will speak fondly of the warm morning breeze. People carry on with their daily lives, unaware that in a short while, everything they have ever known will come to an end.
Around 2008, I was introduced to a game called Guild Wars by some friends that I played with on Star Wars Galaxies. Now, these friends of mine convinced me that Guild Wars is a game that you just have to try. And in fact, they even let me play a little bit on their account so I would have an idea what the game was. And I actually quite liked it. It was a very interesting game. I just basically did some PvP on it. Still didn't quite understand what I was doing, but there was definitely something there, so I went ahead and picked up a copy. I only had prophecies when I first started playing. I didn't buy any expansions or anything. And I will say, my first time playing Guild Wars was a very interesting time. I don't remember a whole lot from that time, but I do remember that I played a Warrior Ranger combo. That when I saw that Dragon Flame sword the NPCs had, that I wanted one so bad. And my friends told me it was even obtainable in game. And I remember the world basically explodes within the first few missions of the game. And that's about all I remember about it. And it's mostly because I didn't play it for too long. I didn't quite understand the game. I had a very hard time trying to pick it up because honestly, at the time, I was used to playing games like Star Wars Galaxies, which was an open world sandbox type MMO with a player driven economy. And with World of Warcraft, it's a theme park MMO. Guild Wars definitely felt very different from those MMOs, and on top of that, I feel like it was hard for me to delegate to another third MMO when I was already playing two. But I will say, in the back of my mind, this is one of those things I always think about. What would it be like if I had played Guild Wars and I spent more time with it? I feel like I missed out on something. I really did. But the good news is, the game still exists. The bad news is, I don't know how to play it without spending money on it again because I had actually two accounts. One that was just my Prophecies game. The other one was a Steam collection of the first game and two expansions whenever they had a sale on it many years ago. In fact, I think I bought that maybe a year after I bought my original copy for some reason. I don't know why I had a second account for it. Either way, I didn't think I was going to be able to get access to them because the email they were attached to, I lost it many years ago. My original email was based on the Hotmail server, and one day when I went to go check my email in the morning, which I always did before work, I couldn't log into my account because it said it didn't recognize my device, even though I'd used it hundreds of times before to log in every day at the exact same time. So the system said it had to send me a text message in order for me to get a code and access my email. Well, no matter how many times I tried, that text message never came, and I was completely locked out of my email for whatever reason. So I had to contact Microsoft to try to get access back. And if you know anything about Microsoft customer service, you would know your local drug dealer has better customer service skills and business ethics than they do.
Whoa! Damn, man, look at that, look!
So I kind of forgot about Guild Wars after that point, but when I decided that I wanted to revisit it because I've been revisiting old MMOs that I kind of missed out on, I realized that my account was tied to that very same old email. And I was pretty sure I was going to have to buy a new copy, but I took a shot in the dark, reached out to ArenaNet, gave them all the details I could possibly remember in my CD keys, and I managed to actually get my accounts back. So huge props to ArenaNet. They already have a huge win in my book because customer service these days is not something you really find, especially for an old MMORPG like this. I mean, World of Warcraft is still the biggest MMO ever, and their customer service is absolutely ass. I mean, they're in a competition with Microsoft to be the worst customer support staff ever nowadays. Now, the reason I talk about this and tell you this story is, one, yes, I'm still mad, and two, the original Guild Wars isn't even being serviced by ArenaNet outside of a maintenance mode. I mean, yes, they still do the holiday updates and everything, but they're not actively developing for the game. They're all putting their money and development time into Guild Wars 2, and yet they still have people servicing the accounts and the players for Guild Wars 1. So props to them. If any of their staff ever watch this video, I want you guys to know you're killing it. Thank you so much for the incredible customer service you guys are still offering people. Now on to the rest of this video. So I do consider myself a new player because I had no idea what I was doing back in the day, and I haven't played in so long that that this is all very new to me at this point, and I don't even remember what I did back in the day. I only remember the big plot twist and what the class I played basically. So everything was pretty new to me, and thankfully some nice people in the community would help me out as I went along, as I might have had questions. And yes, the game is still very active. So one of my biggest things when I first started playing is I wanted to actually do what I set out to originally do back in the day. The first thing is I never got any new armor back in the day. I didn't know how to, I didn't understand how to get better armor. So I was just with the starter armor that they give you at the very beginning of the game for most of the game. So the first thing was I wanted to get new armor as soon as possible. Second thing is I really wanted to get that dragon sword. And third, I wanted to beat the original game's story, which is called Prophecies. Bear in mind, I'm going to keep the spoilers to a minimum in this video for people who haven't played yet, or maybe just don't remember and plan to replay it. So don't worry, if you plan to play the stories in this game, or the main quest lines, then I'm not going to spoil the whole thing for you. I'm going to talk about one little plot twist, but I'm going to leave it at that. So to start with, I'm going to say props to Guild Wars. The game was released in 2005, and being that it's an MMO, it really impresses me that it's probably one of the best looking games for 2005 I've ever seen. This game is phenomenal looking, and the fact that it came out only a few months after World of Warcraft, and its environments are arguably leagues ahead, it very much so impressed me. I will say the character models leave a little bit to be desired. My biggest thing about them is they look a little stiff and maybe just a little too lanky in some ways, but again, it's just being nitpicky. Overall, I like the models, I like the art style, and the music is the best. Jeremy Soule is the best video game composer, bar none for me. He makes such phenomenal music, and this is done around the time he also wrote for The Elder Scrolls Oblivion, so you can tell that it sounds very similar in a lot of ways, but it's just so magical and perfect. I love the soundtrack to this game. It is one of the best parts of it, and like I said, Jeremy Soule, phenomenal artist. The next thing that really strikes me about this game is that it is very story driven. It's very focused on delivering a very interesting adventure, but also a larger narrative. It's something I thought you didn't really see in MMOs until around Star Wars: The Old Republic, but no, this game has quite a big story to it. In fact, to my knowledge, the expansions themselves also each have their own main storyline, and they have voice acting. It's not all voice acted, but they do have voice acting, including for your character, which really surprised me. Now, the game's narrative begins with you being in this beautiful, kind of typical high fantasy place called Ascalon, which is a kingdom of humans who is currently at war with these cat-like creatures called Char. Now, the Char look pretty sick, by the way. They look like basically what you would imagine kind of like a werewolf is, but they're cats and they have giant horns. They're pretty badass looking, to be honest with you. But the humans are at war with the Char, and basically your role comes in the fact that the prince is looking for more able bodies to help fight against the Char, because the Char are starting to really push them back. This also acts as a tutorial for the game, but what's interesting is how big the tutorial actually is. When I first came through this game, I did the first few quests given to me and everything immediately changed. I did not realize that there is a huge, ever-expansive world right here that you can play in, but once you do a certain number of the main story quest line, you'll no longer be able to access that area. So what I do recommend is if you play this game, spend as much time as you can in what is known as Pre-searing Ascalon, because there is quite a bit of content there, and you can get to around level 7 or 8-ish, and probably even higher if you find more quests than I did. In fact, I heard that you can actually get an achievement if you get to level 20, which is the level cap in the game, by just playing what is essentially the tutorial section of the game. Now, during this time when you're in the pre-searing section of the game, it makes a point to show you various mechanics you're going to be encountering, such as how to pick up new skills, where a lot of skills can be acquired by actually just doing quests in the game, and these quests in the game will award you for completing them with actual skills for your class. So for example, I was directed to go meet up with the ranger trainer. The map actually told me where to go. After meeting up with the ranger trainer and learning how to get a pet and a couple of ranger skills, the ranger trainer hinted that there is another ranger out there who could teach me additional skills if I'm interested. They didn't tell me exactly where they were. They hinted where I might find them, somewhere in the further northeast of this zone. And so I went hunting for them, and eventually I did stumble upon them, and yeah, they offered me a quest which gave me various bow skills. Now the important part of all this is that during that journey to find this other ranger trainer, I encountered multiple NPCs that were helpful, such as collector NPCs who would take basically trash items off of enemies that I would kill and exchange them for things like armor or pieces of gear such as a weapon. So what you'll learn very quickly is that the game rewards you for exploration and being curious. And honestly, Guild Wars 2 capitalized on this even further from what I've played of it, but Guild Wars 1 set this example first. The most interesting thing about the original Guild Wars is that it doesn't handhold you too much. It just does enough to help you find what you're looking for and set you on the right track with its map markers, but it doesn't completely tell you everything you need to do or find. It just gives you enough and sets you on the right direction to find so much more. So you may stumble upon more quests, you might stumble upon interesting monsters, or even chests out in the open that you could potentially open up and get a nice item from. You never know what you're going to find with Guild Wars, and that's what I really appreciate about the game. It's an RPG adventure before it's even an MMO. And while that might be a negative thing in some ways, there is nothing stopping you from going on adventures and questing with your friends if you want to. But also, if you don't want to, you can go out there and enjoy these quests in these areas on your own, because when you go out and leave like the main city hubs, you're instanced into your own little world. And this does work really well when you just want to hang out, enjoy something at your own pace, and you don't have to worry about anyone trying to take your mobs or anything else you're trying to farm for. The reason I can even give Guild Wars this excuse whenever it calls itself an MMO, and it is, like I said, a lot of it's instance, but there is nothing stopping you from playing with other players or PvPing, etc. But the reason I give Guild Wars some special treatment in this case is it does something that a lot of MMOs around this time never did. You just buy the game once and it's yours forever. There's no subscription fees or anything like that. Therefore, you're getting a full, basically single player experience, and alongside of it an extensive, and at the time, consistently updated multiplayer experience. Guild Wars 2 is actually the same. It's a game you buy once, you don't have to pay subscriptions for it. There might be expansions that come out later, but it's nothing like other MMOs where you get to have to pay $60 for an expansion, $60 for the base game, pay $15 for, the actual subscription. No, with Guild Wars, you don't spend crazy amounts of money. You buy your game, you enjoy it to the fullest extent that you possibly want to. What's crazy to me about Guild Wars is it's almost this open world adventure RPG game that's kind of disguised as an MMO. It has that MMO tag, but what's likely going to draw you in is that it's this incredible magical adventure RPG game with a ton of content for you to play and experience. And since you can experience all of this at your own leisure, there's no reason to have to feel like you have to play every single day like a typical MMO. It doesn't have the rat race to it, right? You're not on the treadmill trying to catch the carrot. You're simply just enjoying yourself, playing however you like, doing whatever you want, and then you turn it off and you're done. Come back to it if you want. Another thing you'll learn about the game is that when you hit a certain point in the story and the entire world changes and the game opens up even further, it causes you to have to bring along these guys called henchmen. Now you don't have to bring them along, but they are basically NPC party members that you can bring along, such as like a healer, DPS, tank, etc., who can help you kind of get through the zones if you feel like you need it. I personally think it was necessary for a newer player like myself, but I do know a lot of veteran players who get it soloing through these environments. But a lot of the NPCs by themselves can be quite difficult, especially if you're not quite sure of how to play the game yet. So I do recommend bringing a henchman along. Another thing I really like about this game when it opens up at this point is the fact that you will learn about the crafting system. The crafting system I actually quite like. It's different from what you might be used to, but essentially you'll either loot components or you'll salvage items to get components for crafting, and you just present these to vendors with a few pieces of gold and you're able to purchase items that you need. So you're not really like having to craft yourself, you're just presenting these items as currency almost to purchase items. And this is where you start buying like additional armor pieces that you are going to want. But the one thing I like about this is that it kind of reminds me of Monster Hunter, and I'm a big fan of that series. And one of my favorite things is every time you defeat a monster in that game, you can use it to create better gear or create gear based on that monster. Something similar here is that you basically are going to be looting equivalent pieces of crafting material that you can then take back to craft particular pieces of armor that you want. And I really like that aspect because it kind of makes it a lot more fun, because you kind of go back to your zone and think, okay, what can I possibly craft now? You know, I have all this stuff. Maybe I can craft, you know, another chest piece or a piece of armor that I need. It's really cool, and I really like it. The original Guild Wars is pretty awesome. I've really enjoyed my time with it thus far, and I'm sad that I've honestly missed out on this, but the fact is tons of people are still playing. I'm still seeing PvP matches go on. I'm still seeing people running around in the hub areas, and people are definitely still playing this game. It's still pretty active. And I really do appreciate the fact that the developers have decided to keep this game around, regardless of the fact that they're not actively developing for it anymore. I've already completed my first goal of getting a brand new armor set, so I'm very happy about that. I still haven't gotten my Flame Dragon sword, and I plan to probably make an update video on this game once I get further into it. But I did want to talk about my initial experience and how this game has already made quite an impact and good impression on me. Overall, if you see this game and it's on sale on Steam or something, pick it up and its expansions. They usually get very cheap, and it is 100% worth playing. It's worth your time, even as a single player game. The story is very good, the narrative experience is good, the game still looks quite beautiful, and the music is phenomenal. In fact, hell, just go listen to some of the music right now on YouTube. I guarantee you'll fall in love with the game just from that. But let me know if you like this video and you want to see more content on the original Guild Wars. I do have plans to eventually also make some content on Guild Wars 2 once I visit it again. I haven't played it in many years, but I'm going to start over and try again with it. But I thank you for your time today, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. That helps me make more content for you guys to enjoy. Have a good rest of your day. Take care.